So we are going to stay in Perth, the city of the dolphins. We're going to go to our next and final speaker. He took Diksha in 1986 from Gurudeva Maharaj. He's one of those Gurudeva Maharaj mafiosos. he met the devotees in 86. So I read my own notes wrong. He met Gurudeva Maharaj in 91, took Harinam in 91, took Diksha in 96, and arranged for Srila Gurudeva the very first tour in Australia and Southeast Asia. I'm assuming, Prabhu, that you met Srila Gurudeva first in 1996, but I might be wrong. Sorry, my Srila Gurudeva in 96, but I might be wrong there. So it's with a very warm welcome. He always speaks spontaneously, beautifully, effulgently, and often quite electrifying. So I'm very excited to, and with a warm welcome, Sriman Gokul Das from Perth. Dandavat, Prabhu.
Dandavat, Prabhuji. Namo Vishnu Puraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Gaura Govinda Swaminiti Namane Vande Hum Sri Guru Varam Rupanoga Pravaram Vraja Rasa Rasikam Cha Narayanam Tvampapannam Manasristam Manamapi Satiputram Atva Swarupam Rupam Tasagraja Muripurim Maturim Gostavatim Radhakundum Girmaho Radhika Maravasam Papto Yasya Patita Kripaya Sri Gurum Tamnatosmi. So today also is here in Perth is appearance day of Srila Jiva Goswami. So I heard that Sandagopal Prabhu has been speaking so many beautiful things about Sandarbhas, about his research, incredible katha. This is the pranam mantra that Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu wrote for Srila Jiva Goswami after he read the Sandarbhas. Yasankya pakena putaka pamsuna vivata gatena chalupadi titim stadam vya badak sudaya maheshwaram Krishnam Sajivaha Prabhu Astu Magatyam. Jai Srila Jiva Goswami Ki Jai. So, Yashodanandam Prabhu, I think something's going on here. I think you may be a honorary Srila Gopinath Maharaj madman. Yeah. Because you've got us all here. You've got Raghav Pandit, Gokul Das, and Jagadish Pandit. It doesn't get more hardcore than that. And you've got Tapasri Maharaj hanging out at your place. And you're a bit crazy, you know, like you fit the bill.
They will all attest to my craziness, yes. I can have personal recommendations.
It's something like a brother from another mother.
Yeah, definitely. Taruni's just raised hand, which I think she's agreeing with you that I'm crazy. Okay.
Okay, good. Admitted. All madmen. So this Zoom katha has been very nice. It's become a bit of a sequence. So this is, in a sense, was supposed to be a continuation of what we were speaking about on Guru Purnim. This is where this offer to speak came from. So we've spoken on Gurudev's centennial, originally 15 minutes, where I was speaking more like what was Gurudev's conceptions. And then Guru Purnim, and then we also I did a little session with the devotees from Holland, who had all been in Bhubaneswara, but they were also doing a centennial glorification of Gurudev, and they asked me to speak there. So that was really kind of like I spoke a lot of the pastimes just preceding when Gurudev started traveling to the West to preach, but it was really focused on Guru Maharaj's leaving. But in this context today, what I've really been meditating on is, you know, purely like this is like a historical document. I know that you're keeping these as like a historical record. We've spoken about that. And Ambarish Prabhu in Vrindavan is also doing a similar project. And I was thinking about Chandramukhi and all of those devotees. So what I'm going to try and focus on today it's a bit like, we're all in a little way writing. You see the relationship between Vrindavan Das Thakur and Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. They take different bits, different pieces, and I think there's so many. I didn't want to speak in the email that Chandramukhi sent me. She said some people speak about philosophy, some people speak about their experiences, some people speak about both. Today, I think as an historical document, I think it's most important to speak about our individual, what we saw, my perspective of that period, and things that other people, all the classes are there, all the historical record is there, but there's these individual experiences that I think is probably best to record and to give some context and some understanding. So when I've had a bit of time, I've had a bit of an accident, so I've been lying up thinking about this, and it's really took me back to the moods and the feelings of that time and how extraordinary Gurudev sits for me in that context. So I first had Gurudev's darshan in 1991 in Vrindavan. I've spoken about that before. He was speaking at the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada at the Krishna Balaram temple. And that also had a thread running through it where Srila Govinda Maharaj did speak about a transcription of what Gurudev had spoken on that day, which was that book distribution is karma mishra bhakti. But actually Gurudev hadn't said that. So I was touching on that last time we spoke, but I'll move on just to say that was an extraordinary darshan and a great fortune. And as the years progressed in Bhubaneswar and we learnt more, there was obviously a lot of controversy about Srila Gurudev, Srila Narayana Maharaj, that was being discussed in Bhubaneswar. Jagadish Pandit touched on that Raghav Pandit we'd been publishing books, and Raghav Pandit used to travel to Vrindavan, and he had shared those books and brought some of Gurudev's books back to Bhubaneswar. So we used to read those books and discuss about Gurudev. And then by great fortune, around 94, we met Prankishore and Padmanabh Maharaj in Malaysia. And there was this extraordinary synchronicity. They had just returned from Parikram, and just have some devotees coming. So yeah, there was this extraordinary synchronicity in, you looked at Bhakti Naipunya, Amrita Tarangini, and we had just published Guru Vandana at that time. And you look at the books like Going Beyond Vaikuntha, all of Venu Geet, which had just been published at that time. So there was this real closeness there. And I also was thinking that many other things, because we were distributing those books around ISKCON, all these main characters were there. Damodar Maharaj was there, Tapasvi Maharaj was there. Damodar Maharaj was causing chaos, inviting many devotees to leave ISKCON and come and hear from Srila Govinda Maharaj's disciples. There's a very famous darshan where we had actually gone to Srila Govinda Maharaj and asked him, it's not on that camera, and we'd asked him about what he thought of those disciples, his godbrothers, taking shelter of Srila Gurudev. And he gave us a great deal of encouragement. In fact, I remember him one day when he chastised me, as Jagadish Pandit had just said today, we were asking about Gurudev, and I asked Guru Maharaj, but what does Gaur Govinda Maharaj think about us taking shelter of Srila? Because he was saying, well, in ISKCON, there is these rules, you can't go, and this and that and other thing. And I was a little bit grumpy, and I said, Gurudev, what does Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj think of us hearing from, what do you think about them taking shelter of Srila Narayana Maharaj? And Gurudev said, Ari Baba, Gaur Govinda Maharaj is in ISKCON, so he cannot say. And then he was angry with us, and I was recording that. So he kicked us out of the room because he got angry with me. And as I turned off the microphone, Guru Maharaj turned to me, and I'd been recording for 5 or 6 years at that stage, so we had a bit of an understanding, and I sort of nodded my head, yes, the microphone is turned off. And then Damodar Maharaj was sitting on Guru Maharaj's, he was still a bhakti at that stage, and he said, Guru Maharaj, if I ever get a chance to hear from Srila Narayana Maharaj, what should I do? And Guru Maharaj turned to him and said, you should run there. So we had that indication. So there was also other, while I'm mentioning Damodar Maharaj, I'm seeing all these really interesting connections. There was one time when we came out of class in Bhubaneswar, and I could speak Gaudiya quite well by that stage. And Damodar Maharaj asked Guru Maharaj, can I learn Gaudiya like Gokula? Can I, so that I can understand the Gaudiya classes? And Guru Maharaj turned around to him and said, no, you should learn Hindi. And I was like, Hindi? I think Guru Maharaj we've got one recording of Guru Maharaj speaking in a class in Hindi. It was a really unusual instruction at the time that we saw, and that obviously had, Guru Maharaj knew what was going on. That's the thing I'm saying, is that he knew he was going to leave, and he knew that we would go to Gurudeva. So these things are meant to happen. Where I finished speaking last time with the Holland devotees was when Guru Maharaj left. So I don't want to go there again. And then we went back to Bhubaneswar. We did the Viraha Mahotsav. And that was the second time I had direct darshan of Gurudeva. That was really the first time we spoke with him. Raghu Pandit was there, Madhavananda, Rasikananda, Ashram Maharaj. We'd gone back to Mayapur for the Gaur-Purnima festival to sell some books. And we went to Gurudeva just before, it must have been the day before Gaur-Mandal Parikram started, because they were having the meeting that they used to have outside Srila Vamma Maharaj's and Srila Gurudeva's room. Srila Trivakara Maharaj was there. And we were standing there. Those days there was a tiny passage between Srila Vamma Maharaj's room and Srila Gurudeva's room. I was watching Gurudeva, and he kept looking up at us and glancing at us, and you could see that something was going on. So we went in and asked Gurudeva, what should we do? Our Guru Maharaj has left. And I remember by that time, Damodar Maharaj had already been to Vrindavan, got initiated by Gurudeva. He was Radhanath, and he'd come back to Navadvip with Gurudeva. And he said to me, when he went into Gurudeva's room and said that Srila Govinda Maharaj had left, Gurudev put his hand down in his arms and he said, why? He was really like, tell me what happened. What was the story? So Gurudev, this is all very significant, because I think if there's a core thing about what I've been meditating on to speak today, is that Srila Prabhupada asked Gurudev to go to the West and preach. So Gurudev could have gone at any time since the 60s. But Gurudev chose to go to the West immediately after Srila Govinda Maharaj left. I think it's very significant, because there was a momentum there. There was something that was generated. And Raghav Pandit, I'm looking at now, all of our God brothers, we were caught up in that. In fact, there was a role to play. I feel like, when I speak like this, I'm talking from my perspective, so I feel like maybe in a way I'm glorifying myself, but not in a sense that I don't want to do that, but just this is the role that I can see that we had a role in that pastime, in Gurudev's pastime of leaving. So Gurudev said to us at that time, you must go back to Bhubaneswar, you must defend your Siddhanta, the Siddhanta of your Guru Maharaj. Some of you should initiate, accept disciples, which I thought was, very unpalatable instruction, but, like confusing. And after that, when we returned to Bhubaneswar, I went to Vrindavan with my wife to take shelter of Vrindavan, like my Guru Maharaj had when he was looking for a guru. And we stayed in the house that was arranged for us by Prabhu. And went every day to Rupsanat and Gaudiya Mata. I don't want to go into too many details, but we received a great deal of mercy there. The Gurudeva was still preaching in Bengal. So we were waiting for him to come, and finally he came. We went to Delhi. He was doing a program. I saw him there at the end of the program. I went up to him. He asked me what my name was. He said, "What do you want to know?" And I said, "Gurudev, I heard that you are traveling in Western countries. And I want to travel with you. I want to join you." And he said, "Yes, I will see you there." So it was like a very nice instruction. I returned to Malaysia after that, where I'd been living. Again, this Malaysia thing comes up, right? There seems to be this common thing going on there, but we had all been collecting for Gurudev. And because my Guru Maharaj had left and I'd spent months in agony in India, and I just got married, and my Guru Maharaj said, "Go to Malaysia and start a business, make some money," but I'd neglected the business for months. So I returned to Malaysia completely destitute, without any money. I remember that because one devotee, these young devotees who had been distributing the books in ISKCON, Srila Govinda Maharaj's books, one of their brothers gave us a house. So he said, "You can have this house for free," because everybody had been doing programs in my house, and Prankishore and Padmanabh Maharaj and Tapasvi Maharaj, they were all living in Malaysia by this stage. So you can see there was this kind of, it's Gurudev's energy coming together. And I remember when we first got back, I was swimming in a swimming pool. This was very significant also. There was a swimming pool at the apartment, and I was swimming in the pool with Tapasvi Maharaj. And we were sitting on the edge of the pool, and he said to me, "Gokula, I had a dream last night. I was in Bhubaneswar. And I went to the deities. I was paying obeisances. I went to Srila Prabhupada's plinth. There's like a raised, where his Vyasasan is, in Bhubaneswar temple. And I paid obeisances. And when I stood up, Prabhupada stood up on the Vyasasan. And he indicated, take my arm, because Tapasvi Maharaj had been serving as Guru Maharaj's servant on the Parikram. He said, take my arm, I want to go out of the temple. So Tapasvi Maharaj took Prabhupada on his arm and he started walking down the stairs in Bhubaneswar. And then he said, as we were walking down the stairs, the scene changed. So then I was walking down this very busy road, and there was cars and cows, and I came to this temple and I looked up, and there was this big orange temple with Nrsimhadev. And Tapasvi Maharaj said, I turned to Srila Prabhupada and I asked him, why are we coming here? And Srila Prabhupada said, because I'm not allowed to preach in my own temples. So I think that is very significant, given the nature of Tapasvi Maharaj as a personality and what that message indicates. So in a sense, that preaching banner had been handed to Gurudev because, of course, that temple that they're walking into, even though Tapasvi Maharaj had never seen it before, was Keshavji Gaudiya Mati Mathura. So I went to Malaysia. I went back to Bali. My wife Anupama, of course, is from Bali. And as we were leaving, I was showing my father-in-law some books of Gurudev, particularly Prabandhavali. And on the back was the picture of Gurudev, and he was looking. He said, "Oh, so is he in ISKCON?" And I said, "No." He said, "But he's an Indian sannyasi." I said, "Yes, he has an Indian body." And he said, "Then can you invite him to come here to Bali when you meet him in America?" So I went alone. I left my wife in America, in Bali. And I met Prankishore in LA. I went with Champakalata, and Raghu Pandit was there, and Nagari, his wife, and we went to meet Gurudev in LA airport. And I was just reading the offering that Prankshore had written about that ecstatic scene a couple of days ago. That Champakalata trying to put a garland on Gurudev, just the extraordinary scene of Gurudev coming through the LA airport. Really amazing. So Gurudev first began preaching in a temple in Fullerton in South LA, which was the last temple that Srila Govinda Maharaj preached at, where they have a murti of Srila Prabhupada. But it's a little, you know, they have some Shiva deities and some other, it's a little mixed. And we started having these amazing morning walks with Gurudev. Every morning he would go out. He asked Padmanabh Maharaj to quote the verses of Mana Shiksha. On the second morning, he quoted the second verse of Mana Shiksha and explained the necessity of accepting Diksha. And at that stage, I had not accepted Diksha, so I went back to his room and I said to Gurudev that although I'm a rascal and I've made so many mistakes and I've not honored my Guru Maharaj, I've let him down so much, but you know, I need shelter. And Gurudev said, he told us that in 93 he'd been with my Guru Maharaj in Puri, and he had requested that in their discussion, Srila Govinda Maharaj had said, as Jagadish Pandit had said just before, that this material world is not a fit place to remain for any gentleman, and that he was facing so many difficulties from many sides, and that he was thinking of leaving early, just as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had done. So he said, if I leave, then some of my disciples will come to you, and you should give them shelter. So Gurudev kindly accepted me, put us all in his pocket, all of the mad Govinda Maharaj disciples. But there was an energy going on there. And I think my reflection, just particularly today, has been that you look at the classes, so the classes that particularly Gurudev gave in Badger or on the first Australian tour, Gurudev went straight into Lalita Madhava, Vidagdha Madhava, Ujjwala Nilamani. He went to the highest point immediately. I've spoken about this in a different way, but I remember that I was looking at my Chaitanya Charitamrita, because as I was saying, Sripad Tapasvi Maharaj was a servant of Srila Govinda Maharaj, and I traveled with him. And so when he used to sit as a servant, he would read the translations, and Guru Maharaj had marked all the verses that in my book, in my 1-volume Chaitanya Charitamrita, that he would speak about in the class. So I remember I had that with me. I always traveled with a one volume Bhagavatam and 1-volume Chaitanya Charitamrita. And every verse that Gurudev was quoting was there marked exactly. So you see, like, evidential proof that Gurudev was exactly matching what Srila Govinda Maharaj had been preaching. And the other reflection I had was that if you think about that Katha, so I'll just read something quickly from, this is the pinnacle of devotion. So this is Gurudev speaking on the second or third day in Australia. This is the first time the Australian devotees had met Gurudev, and it was the most extraordinary 10 days, and so extraordinary that Shamrani immediately made it into a book. But he was explaining Samopaitam Unnata Ujjwala Rasam Swabhakti Sriyam. What is the speciality of Mahaprabhu, and what is that level that he's going to? So this is what I was saying about context, is that we actually had been hearing that for 5 or 6 years. And that was what we were hearing day after day after day in intimate detail. So when I was speaking before about role, when we were traveling with Gurudev, I could see that what was happening was that devotees would come to Gurudeva and they would say, "Oh, are you a disciple of Srila Govinda Maharaj? I was hearing from Gurudeva and I'm not, because to go to that level at that point it was a very big shift. It was a big jump. But what I found was I was able to sit with those devotees and explain what Gurudeva had just spoken in their class and say, yes, if you were attracted to Srila Govinda Maharaj, this is exactly what Gurudeva is saying and speaking is exactly the same thing. So we were able to comfort those devotees and convince them that Gurudev was bona fide and that this was if you were attracted to Srila Govinda Maharaj, then you would obtain the same thing in this place. I'd never kind of thought about it in that way before, but it really was like that because there was, that's what I was thinking. And when I go back into that time, there was very few devotees who had heard these things before. And Gurudev was just preaching the highest thing, like breakdowns of all the different types of gopis and why this gopi is like this and why that gopi is like that. Really extraordinary. So when I've mentioned this before, that the places, like for example, Harikatha Prabhu was in San Francisco when we were in Badger, and he called me and said, the devotees here in San Francisco are asking me to host Srila Narayana Maharaj. What do you think? And I said, well, what do you think Guru Maharaj would say? Sadhu is coming, you offer him a seat, you offer him a glass of water, and here's Harikatha. We are simple, we're just not into any of these, institutional considerations. It's Harikatha, we'll run there, like our head is on fire, Jagadish Pandit was saying before. So he did, and then Gurudev captured him. So again, that Bhubaneswar project that Harikatha had been beginning the business with, that linked up with my father-in-law, which then generated a great deal of funds, which paid for the first Jaiva Dharma publishing. All of these things are incredibly linked. I could, when I start speaking, it could go on and on. I remember when I left. I'll go quickly to the end of that tour. So we went to San Francisco, we got in a bus, we traveled up to Eugene in Oregon, to the ashram of Sripad Tapasvi Maharaj and Nishinga Maharaj, not Tripurari Maharaj, sorry, Sripad Tripurari Maharaj and Sripad Nishinga Maharaj, and Pushpadanta Prabhu was there, Agni Dev Prabhu, in Gurudeva there was incredible kirtans, incredible Harikatha. I was just, when I was going to speak today, I just wanted to kind of hit the highlights, the things that I always refer back to. I remember going on a morning walk, the last morning walk, we went up beside a creek behind the temple on the last morning with Gurudev. And I could see Nishinga Maharaj and Tripurari Maharaj whispering to each other. They'd obviously cooked up some questions that they wanted to ask Gurudev in secret. And they were obviously their situation was dictated by the fact that they had taken shelter of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Maharaj, and they had been kicked out of ISKCON, so they had this kind of standalone preaching mission. And they'd actually come to Srila Govinda Maharaj a year before he'd left and asked him to leave and join them. So we had this kind of connection also with them. Srila Govinda Maharaj had gone there and preached also. And they asked as we were on this morning walk, they asked Gurudev, in one of his commentaries, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Maharaj explains the meaning of Kling, Radha and Krishna in this Bij mantra. But in the Guru mantra, there's this Ain. What is the meaning of Ain? And Gurudev just closed his eyes. I remember it was so intense. And he opened, he just stared right into their eyes and he said, Ain. This is Ao, externally Krishna, In is Krishna. So in this word Krishnandaya, Gurudev is serving externally Mahaprabhu in his Guru form, and internally he's serving Radha and Krishna in his Gopi form. It was so transcendental. The depth, because I know at that time I hadn't accepted Guru Mantra. I hadn't accepted Diksha Mantras. But I saw, I was standing behind Gurudeva and I was looking right into Sri Maharaja's eyes, and I saw that recognition that, oh, this is a Mahabhagat. Nobody can speak like that. And it's that, you know, the living entity is accepting. Yeah.
Would you mind just repeating that again? Because that was such an amazing point about Ain.
Yeah. There's two syllables. A-in. In means Ain. I may be corrected by more qualified devotees, but I think Ain is the Anushwara, which means on. Is Krishna. A means Krishna, that is Radhika. So Radha and Krishna. So Gurudev said, this Krishnandai, Gurudev is giving pleasure to Krishna and Krishna. So Krishna externally in his Sadak form, in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and serving Krishna externally, but internally, Krishna, he's serving Radhika with his internal moods of Gopi. And Gurudev said, you know, when Mahabhagavat says like that, they say it with such authority, with such depth, with such realization. There's just no doubt that this is authoritative. And I always think, you know, like if I don't know, I can't pass judgment, but maybe I'm not saying about any particular devotee, but if a conditioned living entity accepts that position of guru, and then they have to make that decision. Then, oh, I've accepted disciples. Now I've found a higher Vaishnava. This instruction has been given to us that we should then pass those disciples to this guru, or we should take shelter there, or we should just surrender, essentially. You don't need to make a decision. If you come in front of a Mahabhagavat like that, the clear instruction is you must surrender there. So just that was very, very impactful for me in that I had soon after accepted mantras from Gurudev. When I left the tour, I left that initial tour in Eugene in Oregon to return to Bali. And as I was leaving, I went into Gurudev's room. I know I haven't got much room, huh? So much time. Okay. So I said to Gurudev, I'm going back to Bali now. Gurudev stopped me and he said, so where are you staying? I said, I'm in Malaysia. He said, okay, you're from Australia? Yes. And he said, and I said, oh, my father-in-law is from Bali in Indonesia, and there are many devotees there, many disciples of Srila Gaudiya Maharaj. And Gurudev said, good. I want to travel everywhere and preach in those places. I want to go to Malaysia. I have a friend in Singapore, Guptaji. I want to go to Bali. I want to go to Australia. 2 weeks in every place. You go back and arrange this for me. So, you know, Chandramukhi asked me what my highlight, I think, with Gurudev is, and I think perhaps that must be my highlight, to have arranged that for Gurudev. That Srila Gaudiya Maharaj, when we were leaving Bali, when I first met my wife, I told him that we had arranged a wife in Bali, and Gurudev, the last thing he said to me was, okay, you go back there and you help the devotees, you train them in Bali. I want you to spend 3 months with your wife-to-be, get to know her and train the devotees in Bali. Help them. He kept saying that to me, help them. Because that last tour in Bali, Srila Gaudiya Maharaj was being banned. He was told not to go. And even the lead disciple in Bali had rung Guru Maharaj and said, "You cannot come. The ISKCON leader is telling you cannot come. The government is giving us too much trouble." And when I was in Bhubaneswar with Guru Maharaj, when he said that, and he put the phone down and he said, "I have 200 disciples there. Who will look after them? Who will look after them?" So Guru's heart bleeds like this to look after and nourish his disciples. So I felt this was, I remember Gurudeva asked me to speak on that when we got to Bali that first time, and I said this thing, that if I can do anything, this is what I can't help. I'm weak, insignificant. I can just give some ideas, but if I can bring a devotee like Srila Gurudeva to Bali, what more help could I give? So we went back. We began arranging the first tour. One of the first things I asked Gurudeva was to have a child. Some instructions on how to conceive a Krishna conscious child, because Srila Gokula Maharaj had always instructed us that if you want to try and get a child, then you should ask for your guru. Now I'd taken short of Gurudev, so I'd try to follow that. Rajanath Prabhu sent us a lovely set of instructions from Gurudev that both Raghav Pandit and myself read, and consequently both of our wives became pregnant immediately. So that had some super potency. So we arrived on the first program, the 96th program with Gurudev, with both having pregnant wives. It was a bit of an interesting thing. And just on that point, I mean, this is, Anupama's going to smack me if I say this too many times, but one of the things that really I found interesting, when we sat down with Gurudev, I introduced my wife and he said, "She's beautiful both outside and inside." And I just thought it was really interesting, like that Gurudev observed and commented on that. Obviously, she's so beautiful inside, but to notice that beauty and to comment on it, it's something that always stuck with me. In that darshan also, he asked if Anupama had been to India before, and I mentioned we'd been to Bhubaneswar. And Gurudev actually instructed us very strongly not to return to Bhubaneswar. He indicated that my life might be in danger. And I don't want to say that in a too dramatic way, but the reason I'm saying that is because it was really, really clear to me. There was things that I knew that were going on in Bhubaneswar which would cause my life to be in danger, that only I knew about. But Gurudev knew about them also. So this was very extraordinary. And Gurudev proved that again and again with me, that he, even to this day, I get instructions about where to go, where not to go, based on relationships like that. So what I'm trying to bring out is that the experience is inextricably entwined, that we think that everything is really, really connected. I think there's another thing that you and I discussed the other day, Yashodananda Prabhu. I remember that with that instruction that I was holding from Gurudev at that time to go and organize the first Southeastern Australian tour, Gurudev also, during that first program, asked all the senior devotees to form a preaching committee. And you said that this is was basically dysfunctional for the next 15 years. We never kind of got it together. There were many reasons for that, obviously. A lot of devotees were burnt out with being in leadership positions in institutions and that sort of thing. But it seemed like it was, instead of people putting their hand up to do that savor, people were kind of putting their hand down, is the way I would describe it. People were running away. But one experience I did have was that, and I'm just this was painting the picture of around that time, everything was new. Everything was like, Gurudev there's such a frisson, there's such a excitement when Gurudev is going out and preaching for the first time. And I was told, okay, you're not organizing the tour anymore, we're taking over. Some really nasty things were said to me, but I remember, because Gurudev had said 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, and I said, and when the devotee came and told me that you're not doing that anymore, I said, well, I'm sorry, but the way Srila Gaudiya Maharaj has trained me, you can chop my head off and my arms off and my legs off, and I'll keep trying to do that until Gurudev tells me something different. But that's the seva, you know, like I'm hanging on to that with my life and soul. And this is another really interesting thing. My experience, I went to Sripad Madhav Maharaj, who was obviously Naveen Krishna Brahmachari at the time, and I said, hey, the devotees have just come to me and said that I'm not doing that anymore. And Madhav Maharaj took me straight to Gurudev, and I said, Gurudev, what's going on? And he said, no, don't worry about it. I will talk to them. You just keep doing your seva. And I had this instant realization that if you look at all of the Gaudiya Vaishnava institutions, Gaudiya Mat, ISKCON, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, even Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj's mats, like when they leave this world, it's the Kalichulas take over the institutions, essentially. It eventually happened to the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, but at that time we had Srila Gurudev, Srila Trivikram Maharaj, and Srila Bhavan Maharaj, the three pillars, and this was the only institution that remained in control of the Mahabhagavats and became the principal core. You know, Gurudev said on that first parikrama that Mathura is like the center of the universe. It's a chakra. It's the Chakravati. It's the center about which the whole preaching revolves. It's a place where Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada took sannyas and went out to preach. It's the place where Srila Govinda Maharaj came when he came looking for a guru in Vrindavan. So I felt this immense power that we were at the center of that, the source of that preaching. I could go on forever. How much time have I got, Prabhu? I know we're way over.
I think you wanted a double slot, right? An hour, right?
Okay, if yeah.
So we've got another 20.
And Upam is showing me 20 minutes, so that's good.
Oh, you got
I've got an organizer here because after last time I got a bit out of control. So I'm under. You know, Guru Maharaj said that disciple is always under discipline. So I have my disciplinarians here.
We're just finishing the introduction. That's just the warm up, right?
Yeah. So then after the first parikram, we went back and immediately we had to get organized to do the first Southeast Asian tour. And the interesting thing was when we went for that 96 parikram, those young devotees it was a group of 3 or 4 devotees, Kesha, Prabhu, Ishwara Puri, and Gadadhar. There was this kind of 3 bandits, like, you know, complete Gaur Govinda Maharaj candidates. And they really loved Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj's books, and they used to distribute them and cause all sorts of disturbance in the ISKCON temple. So they latched onto us and came to the parikram, but they were smoking cigarettes and, you know, going out with girls, and, you know, they were pretty wild characters. You know, what you call Tamil, you know, like the workers in Malaysia, but they're such sweet devotees. And they really, you know, Krishna consciousness was just a bit like a fun and joke for them. And they came, and one day they said to me, I want to get some chanting beads or something, you know. Anyway, so we were in Mathura, and I said, let's go into and this was one of these devotees. His brother had given Anupam and I a house to live in. So this was kind of all connected. And by this time, I think Janavi Jeevan and Manumati were staying there. They were looking after it for us. And I took them into the room, and Gurudev was joking with them. They said, oh, Gurudev, you know, Gurudev was giving a darshan, giving them some very nice katha, and they said, I can't remember he was asking about them. I said, oh, Gurudev, there's these 3 boys, and they're helping us in Malaysia, and they're helping us arrange programs with all their friends and everything. And but they're very naughty. I said, Gurudev, they're very naughty boys. You know, they're smoking and cigarettes and all of this kind of thing. And Gurudev said, I like naughty boys. So he was joking with them and, you know, very playful. This was, I remember, it was in the original room of Gurudev down near the temple room. And then right at the end, they were nudging me and they were saying, Gokul, can you ask Maharaj about the beads? We want some beads to chant on. So I said, Gurudev, they want to know if you could give them some beads to chant on. And they had mustaches, that's right. I remember they had mustaches as well. So Gurudev pointed at them and he said, okay, you come back here in the morning, that white flute, you know, this cigarette and this mustache, hair, all gone. You're coming back and I'm giving you beads, meaning I'm going to initiate you. And honestly, they were quite dark skinned and they went really white color. So it was pretty funny. But Gurudev just grabbed them. And when they went back to Malaysia, it was extraordinary. They became the basis of Gurudev's preaching in Malaysia. Their brother, where Gurudev stayed in the house of one of their brothers, they went out and distributed posters. They shaved up. They were chanting like madmen. They became completely enthusiastic and they served Gurudev for the next 15 years. And that became the basis of the preaching in Malaysia. So this is what I was kind of thinking of this context, you know, and how many devotees they brought. You know, Bala was one of their cousins or something, where Gurudev always used to go and do classes in Malaysia.
Was that the tennis player?
Yeah, no, that was that was Bala's brother, Vijay. Yeah,
Vijay. How about Shirley? How about Shirley?
Lalita came. She was also one lawyer who Jagadish Pandit had preached to. She came on that first tour and she became like the godmother of our son. And she's really Lalita. We had Lalita Saptam the other day. I was thinking about her. And she helped Gurudev so much. She funded so many things. So it was amazing like how Gurudev took all of that energy that was from those classes that were going on in my apartment there for some time and became what was it, the heritage, right? Became like a little ashram for all of Gurudev's followers. And then we went to Bali. Gurudev, Gurudev, I remember we were on a morning walk in Malaysia, and at the end of Parikram, so many things I could think of. At the end of Parikram, Gurudev had given us Radha and Krishna deities, and we were on one of those walking paths where they put the stones, you know, they're like a massage on your bottom of your soles of your feet, reflexology things, and Madhav Maharaj was running up and down like a madman, because he could obviously run on the sharpest stones possible. And Gurudev turned around to me and he said, so Gokul, when you're doing offering, if you have a plate, an offering plate, and you have Radha and Krishna and Mahaprabhu, do you offer one plate or two plates? Like, these conceptions were so high. And then why I thought of that was because Gurudev actually answered that in Bali, from the second last chapter of Jaiva Dharma, and still I don't understand that class. I've been meditating on that class for 20 years and I still don't understand it. Gurudev started so high and then sort of he showed us exactly the destination and then began to fill in everything in between in the ensuing years. That was my experience. One thing I'll say about those journeys in Bali was that it was incredibly intimate, that Gurudev, those memories, like, it's like our son, yeah, like Anupam is just holding this, one if I can make it on the thing, right? So this Gurudev, and we had that great fortune that when Gurudev got to Bali, it was his first Vyasa Puja outside of India. So we made this cake for Gurudev and I was presenting it to Gurudev. And he took the cream off the cake and wiped it all across my face. And we'd go down, we'd take Gurudev down to the beach and we'd massage him with black sand and turn him from golden color into black color. And then he would fight with us. And it was really something very, very special. And we'd be in that completely frivolous mood. And then we'd come back to the house and then Gurudev would give us a class on the second last chapter of Jaiva Dharma. You know, it was... I remember driving, you know, I used to drive
Gokul,
around.
what was the answer to the plate? You didn't give us the answer.
No. The answer is no. You offer one plate.
Oh, yeah. One or two. The answer is not no. The answer is one plate. Yeah.
One plate, yes. One plate. And why do you do that? That's the bit I'm still meditating on. So
there's no way.
that was
There's no way to
I'll just
shishi.
rewind from that also, because at the end of the first parikram in '96 was we got Radha and Krishna. Yeah, that's right. So we'd taken Diksha mantras in Govardhan, and I'd asked Gurudev, I want a Govardhan Shila. Because Srila Govind had always said you should, Grihastas should have. If you don't have deities in your house, then you think the house is yours. You have to have deities in the house, so that's the master of the house, right? It's just that basic devotional principle. So I'd said to Gurudev, I want to worship a Govardhan Shila, because Gurudev had actually given us an instruction to get the child was to worship Giriraj rather than do Purusha Shukta. I can't tell you that too much detail, but and we were thinking that because Gurudev had given us that instruction, then we should worship Giriraj. And then Gurudev said, no, I don't want you to have Giriraj. That's a very long story also, I won't go there. So after the Annakut festival, I went to Gurudev and I said, Gurudev, can I get Gaunitai deities? Because Srila Govinda gave all his Grihasta disciples Gaunitai deities. And Gurudev said, no, I don't want you to have Gaunitai deities, I want you to have Radha Krishna deities. And I was like, oh, okay. So he said, when we get back to Vrindavan, you go in Loi Bazaar and you look around and find some deities. So we went there, and I was going to all the deity shops and looking, couldn't really make up my mind. So I went back to Gurudev's room and he was giving darshan, and I said, Gurudev, I'm seeing these deities, and can you give me any indication of the particular form of Radha and Krishna that I should really look for? I was thinking like Tribangala Lalit and maybe a bit like Radha Raman. I was really attracted to Radha Raman. Gurudev looked at me and he said, I want you to have Radha and Krishna with Mahaprabhu. And it was real. I remember all the devotees in the room went, Jai, Jai, because Gurudev had never said that before. Because he'd given Radha and Krishna to Prankishore and Champak, and we'd been worshipping them in Malaysia. So when we left, he said to me, we brought Radha Krishna to him, and he said, no, Mahaprabhu won't come this year. Mahaprabhu will come this next year. And he did. And Gurudev, so that's what I was saying. So then, as soon as after that parikram, we started traveling on that Australian Southeast Asian tour. And then Gurudev was immediately instructing me about the moves of worshipping Radha and Krishna with Mahaprabhu on the altar. It's quite extraordinary what Gurudev did. And then, so coming up, 9 minutes. So, well, the thing I think if Chandramukhi was listening to this, those 10 classes in Australia, where Gurudev went to the very limit of bhakti, explaining Unnata Ujjwala Rasa Swa Bhakti Sriyam, I still think for me was the most beautiful set of classes, the most beautifully constructed 10 days of contiguous Harikatha I've heard in my life. Absolutely, and as I said, it's in the pinnacle of devotion. Everybody can go and read that. It was just, I opened it again today, and I see the first page, Lalita Madhava, Vidagdha Madhava. How do you go into Australia on the first day and start speaking like that? It's quite extraordinary. So when I returned to Malaysia, Anupama was pregnant by then. Like, we'd gone to Bali, must have been like April. Yashomatin, our son, was born in May. That was during the second Badger festival, and we rang Gurudev, and he said, you wait, I'll give you a name. It took a week during the whole festival. And at the end of the festival, I rang back to Gurudeva and I said, I have kept the name Yashomati Nandana. And that, again, Gurudev speaking about, this song is only for Mahabhagavats, this Yashomati Nandana bhajan. So I realized the significance and benefit and immense blessings of having a son by that name. Such a beautiful name. And he's taken great joy in his life and teaching all of great pride in his name, teaching all of his friends how to say that. So when we returned, of course, with a new child, then I was starting to try and get serious about being a husband and a grihasta, try to look after my wife a little bit. I went to the second parikram with Gurudev in that October alone, because Anupama was looking after the children, with the understanding that she would come with Lalita again from Malaysia and her younger sister, Rasheshwari. And by this time, Gurudev had initiated the whole family. So Krishna, the younger sister was Krishna Priya, Rasheshwari, Hari. They all had names. The whole of Ananta Krishna my father-in-law got initiated by Gurudev. We came back for the second parikram, and I walked up the stairs on Srila Bhakti Pragam Keshav Maharaj's appearance day on the first day of Kartik. Gurudev was speaking, and I was feeling that immense excitement to be in his association, and in the association of Sripad Madhav Maharaj and Sripad Bon Maharaj and Sripad Shubhanand Tirtha Maharaj and Premananda Prabhu and all the incredible devotees that we'd met. Anupama was telling me the pastimes on the first parikram of, as soon as Gurudev found out that she was pregnant, we had to give a feast on Gopastami in Nandagal that Premananda Prabhu arranged. And that's a whole nother pastime, that's a whole nother interesting. But those experiences, those connections that Gurudev already made up for us with the Dham, with all of his associates. And I was feeling this immense excitement coming back to Parikram the second time. And as I was thinking, these personalities are not ordinary personalities. And as I came up the stairs, I leant against the pillar at the back of the class. And Gurudev was sitting on that cot, in the Mathura temple, speaking about Srila Bhakti Pragam Keshav Maharaj. And he said, when my Guru Maharaj came to this world, the Guru, these Siddha Mahapurushas, they do not come alone, they come with all of their associates. So in my mind, I was, yes, this is confirmed, all of these personalities. We can't understand. Gurudev has repeated this to us over the years. You can't understand who they are. If you serve Gurudev night and day for 36 years, that is, you look at the service of Srila Gaudiya Maharaj, maximum 2 years, and then generally they fell down. It's an extraordinary thing to be that close, to serve your Guru that intimate for that period of time. So when Parikram started and we went to Govardhan, that was the year before, and we were staying in, I think the land was already there for the Govardhan Mutt, because I left from there at the bus station. I caught a bus to pick up Anupama. This was the second week of Parikram, and it was the day of Radhakund Parikram. I caught a bus to the Delhi airport, picked up my wife and Lalita and Rasheshwari. We came back with a taxi, and as we were coming down the highway to Vrindavan, I remembered, Gurudev will be in Radhakund today. So I told the taxi driver, can you take us to Radhakund? And as we arrived at the other side we pulled up beside Radhakund, we walked in from the side of Raghunath Das Goswami's Samadhi, and Gurudev came from the other side, from Shamakund. And Anupama was carrying Yashomati Nandan. He was 6 months old. And Gurudev walked up to him and just took him in his arms and said, "You know who I am? I'm your grandfather." And he told one of the brahmacharis to take some Radhakund water and put it on his head. And just extraordinary memories like that. I remember when Gurudev came out, Gurudev had his hand on Govi. You know Govi, Chudani Maharaj's son.
Yeah.
Govardhan, when he was a young son, he was walking. We came from one side of Radhakund and Gurudev came from the other side. And on the last day of the 97 Parikram, it was exactly, so he was born in the May. So to the day he was born on the 15th of May, 14th of May. And on the 14th of November, to the day 6 months, was the last day of Parikram. So we were breaking fast, and we took this young child, 6-month-old boy, to Gurudev's room, and he took the sweet rice off his own plate and put it in his mouth and gave him his first grains. And we also took Mahaprabhu. We had Mahaprabhu then, and Gurudev took Mahaprabhu in his own hands and put a blindfold on him and took him into the altar at Rup Sanatan and did Pran Pratishtha. So, coming 58 minutes. So I better wind up there. So many things, but maybe I skim a little bit. These are just my own personal impressions. By the third parikram, which was 1998, again, Anupama was about to give birth at the end of November with our second child, Krishna Priya. So when I went to Gurudev's room to leave, Gurudev said, "So you're going back now?" I said, "Yes." He said, "So 2 children?" I said, "Yes, Gurudev, Anupama will give birth soon." He said, "Okay, stop. 2 is enough." So that was a really heavy instruction. And he said, and I was just about to turn to leave. I remember I was kind of opening the door. And Gurudev said, "Gokul, I just want to ask you one thing. I'm thinking of giving sannyas to 3 devotees, Govinda Bhaktata, Urukram, and Prem Parajan. What do you think?" And again, it's one of the, I love thinking about those extra. Why? And I said to Gurudev, "Why are you asking me?" What? But Gurudev said that was the relationship. It was something he liked to sound. He did that many times. Like it'd sound things off me. So if Gurudev asks you that, you just tell him whatever's in your heart, unfiltered. So I told Gurudev, and I gave him the impressions I had, and I got into a bit of trouble I said something about Padmanabh Maharaj that he apparently reckons that delayed his sannyas by 1 year, but that's another story again. But I said also at the end, I said, "Gurudev, also I think it'd be funny if you had these 3 Western disciples that were sannyasis, and you had like Naveen Krishna and Shubhananda and Subhasobha Saka and Premananda Prabhu. They're not sannyasis. That would look a bit strange, because really, one of the things I said to Gurudev was that maybe one of the devotees should spend more time with them, so that he could mature." And Gurudev was like, So that was another kind of really interesting experience. So I've just been given the 1 hour exactly. I would, so many, hours and hours you could speak about Gurudev, so many points. But I think it's also late, and it's 10, must be getting late there.
Yeah, thanks, Prabhu. That's beautiful. And thank you to Anupam, that did my job for me effortlessly. I didn't have to do anything. Well done, Didi. I'd forgotten when we were talking about who's part of the Govinda Mafia, I'd forgotten about Damodar Maharaj. Of course, he's kind of like, he's totally typecast for it, right?
Yeah.
Absolute madman.
Yeah. I remember when he came to Guru Maharaj pointed and said, "He's your brother, you look after him." And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, I have to tell a very, very quick story actually about Damodar Maharaj. So once I was facilitating a meeting, I don't know how many people there, maybe 50 people, 50 devotees, all the seniors, and we were talking about, it was at that unfortunate time of Titra Maharaj's fall down, and he was there, and everyone was discussing how we it was in Kartik, how are we going to do Navrit Parikram, and then how are we going to get the rice, because Titra Maharaj does that incredible rice collecting. The Damodar Maharaj goes, "Oh, don't worry, if Titra Maharaj isn't there, there'll be no Bengalis, so we don't need any rice." Classic Damodar Maharaj joke. Everybody laughs, and then I see Mrs. Somnath. Do you remember Mrs. Somnath? By the way, you're not looking at the camera anymore. You're looking somewhere else. Yeah, that's it. So then I see Mrs. Somnath looking really unhappy because it was not an appropriate comment, and I said, "Mrs. Somnath, please excuse Maharaj. He's Australian." And then everybody just laughed again, and it was like all diffused, so it was fine.
Bhakta Rough, as Gurudev used to call him.
I didn't realize, just a quick check, Radhakant, I knew you always had a business partner in Bali. Is that your father-in-law?
That's my father-in-law.
Ah, the links are there. Okay, that's cool.
When the Viraha Mahotsav was coming, that was the first time Radhakanta Prabhu had come to Bhubaneswar. And somebody was showing a video from Mayapur when Guru Maharaj left.
We can't hear you so well, by the way, Prabhu. You've gone out of...
Can you hear me now?
It's okay. It's very echoey. It's not like it was before.
That's better. Sorry. Is that better?
Yeah.
So when Radhakanta Prabhu, the first time he came to Bhubaneswar was just after Guru Maharaj left, and they were showing a video of Srila Gokula Maharaj's departure in Mayapur, and I couldn't watch it. I was sitting under a neem tree in the courtyard, and this devotee walked up to me. He said, "Is your name Gokul?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, do you have a father-in-law in Bali?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I want to do some business. I want to go to Bali and do this gift business or something." And I was sitting there going, "This is weird. Why is this guy coming up to me?" I was sitting there bawling my eyes out, and this guy's coming up to me talking about business. But funny. You see, like, that was it. He went to Bali. He started the business. Gurudev took all of that. It became so huge. They made that, like it was.
No, it's something that appeared mundane was anything but mundane. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't judge.
No. And you said
it's going on till today. It's still funding the preaching in Bali.
You said how Gurudev was like all about who's going to look after my devotees in Bali, and it reminds me of a time when Gurudev went through a Leela in California where he got sunstroke, and so he was due to fly from California to Europe, to Germany, and then to Italy to do the European festival, and all the devotees in the European festival were crying for him. And Gurudev, I had the job of sort of trying to communicate to Europe what was going on. It was kind of pre-social media, so they needed to have some communication going on. And Gurudev, I mean, any ordinary person would not have left hospital, and certainly would not have been traveling intercontinentally over to Europe. Gurudev checked himself out, and he flew to the European festival. There was no way he could hear the heart pangs of the devotees and not do something. He was totally dedicated. And also, I loved what you said many times, and I've always been amazed by this. Yes, Gurudev came in and gave us the highest topics, and then filled in the rest. And that is, I mean, he's like the Prayojan Guru, really, because, I mean, I remember when I came in '96, I knew nothing. I just learned the Maha Mantra just about, and I was hearing about Manjari Bhav. I mean, to say not qualified is an understatement. But he put everything in order. It was like he created. It was like he was pointing to, here is the superstructure, here is the building, and then all the floors can be built afterwards. He kind of gave us the roadmap, and having that roadmap also gave you a kind of almost in a sense from his Shakti, from his mercy, and in a sense of what's common sense tattva, what's common sense ras, and what's not. So when bogus stuff comes in, it's kind of like you already had an internal filter, because Gurudev had already put the key parts in your heart through the seed,
I'm actually just doing that for the devotees here. Some devotees asked me to give some classes on Jaiva Dharma here, and I said that to them in the beginning, that if you've got the framework, you've got reference points. It can't be, right? Yeah. Srila Gokula Maharaj said, before you accept Guru, disciple should examine Guru should examine disciple. So how will the disciple examine the Guru if he doesn't have a framework? Yeah. Right? You need points of reference. You need to know what the goal is. You need to know. I mean, the really key one. I mean, the really key one that I should have spoken today was, I've been trying to get to, was in Bali, where Gurudev I was in the room with Gurudev in Bali and with Ashram Maharaj, and he asked Gurudev that year, it must have been 99, and when Puri Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Puri Maharaj was saying that Gurudev was speaking too high, and Gurudev said, if he's saying these things, then he's not read the books of Rupa and Raghunath, and if he has done so, he's not done so in any good association. He said, only your Guru Maharaj and myself are speaking these things. And if we don't speak, then it may disappear from this world. Yeah. So that is so significant for me. And it was so true at that time, and it is still now, but very, very important points.
It's incredible, actually. And the one plate story, by the way, I mean, not that I know anything, but my suggestion, you got beautiful Seva Kunj over there, Dandavat Pranams. Hari Bol, thank you so much. That was
we've got beautiful Gurudev behind us, right? See, Raga
I know.
Pandit
I was marveling at that the whole time, Gokul.